Ideally in the morning, I am taking my thyroid medication and any other medications or supplements that I need to take on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. I don't always do that. Sometimes I do take it with my morning hydration drink, which I usually drink after I've been up for a little bit, but I've been waking up earlier the last couple of days. It's about 6:30 now. I've been up since about 6 o'clock. So trying to get back in the habit of taking my thyroid medication and now this liver supplement that I'm supposed to take on an empty stomach. Taking that first thing in the morning, waiting a little bit then before doing my hydration drink or any other food, basically letting that stuff absorb on an empty stomach. And I do find that if I take my thyroid medication first thing in the morning with a little bit, usually I try to take it with like a little bit of warm water and some lemon, it does kind of help kickstart my digestion and just like I feel a little bit better when I do drink my hydration drink later in the morning. So hopefully I can get back on track doing that most mornings. I don't like to work out on an empty stomach, but I also don't want to be like digesting a whole bunch of food while I'm trying to work out. So I will have something like this as my pre-workout snack. It has about 7 grams of protein, and I've also gotten a little bit of protein and carbs from my hydration this morning, and that helps me get through my workout so I'm not like fatiguing or crashing during my workout, but I'm also not like overly full or my body's not putting too much energy towards digesting that I want to be putting into my workout. I'm having a post-workout protein bar. I've talked about these before, but these are really the only protein bars that I like in terms of ingredients and taste. And I'm in a little bit of a hurry today because I want to get over the barn as early as possible. It's gotten really hot and humid again, so I want to try to beat the heat this morning. But I realized when I did my updated supplement routine in my last video that I somehow forgot magnesium. I don't know how I missed this, but I do take magnesium every day as well. This is magnesium glycinate. So I take 1 capsule in the morning and 2 at night before bed. That gets me the overall dosage that I am trying to reach as recommended by my doctor for me. But magnesium is another like really common deficiency. A lot of people are deficient in magnesium, and especially if your body is under any kind of stress, you're going to be depleting your magnesium faster, and it can help with sleep. There are a lot of different forms of magnesium, some that are more bioavailable than others, like some that basically are absorbed and used by the body more easily than others. And there's the different types of magnesium can kind of have different particular benefits. So if you are supplementing supplementing or thinking about supplementing with magnesium, kind of look at like what the different types of magnesium are and what functions of the body they target more or less, and figure out maybe which kind would be best for you. But magnesium glycinate has been my go-to for a while. And the other thing that I do on a daily basis, it's not really a supplement because it's food, but I do try to eat 1 to 2 Brazil nuts every day for the selenium. Selenium is really important for thyroid function as well, and it's another one that it's kind of hard to get unless you're specifically seeking it out. So Brazil nuts are very high in selenium, so I usually just eat 1 or 2 of those every morning as well. Somebody has been enjoying the mud in her paddock for the last couple of days. It's great for her, but means that I end up covered in dirt when I ride her. So we're gonna do a quick bath before we do our ride today, and then she can dry off while we're walking around. All right, I'm home from the barn. I'm just making some lunch, and there are a few things that I do basically on a daily basis to try to support overall digestion and gut health. Obviously, I've done a lot of gut tests lately, and we've known for a long time that gut health for me is at least somewhat compromised. There's nothing really crazy going on, but it is an area where I could use extra support, and I've done a lot of different protocols over the years to try to improve gut health. Some things that are maybe like a little more intensive, like elimination diets, or more long-term supplemental support. Right now, like for instance, I'm doing some antifungal medications and antifungal supplements based off of the last gut test results that we got. But I'm also always looking for like the really maybe more minor or like small daily habits that I can do that I know in the long term are going to be really supportive. And there are some things that I have noticed do feel really helpful to me that I maybe implemented quite a while ago that have just become part of my daily routine. So one thing that I do is like I try to keep my meals at about the same time every day. My preference is to have basically 3 main meals throughout the day, and then I'll have some kind of like pre-workout snack and my morning hydration drink, which also has some protein and nutrients in it. And for the most part, I try to keep each of those meals or snacks at about the same time each day. Obviously, it's not like something that I can do 100% every single day. There's going to be interruptions to that from time to time, and that's totally fine. But in general, if I can keep it like within about a 30-minute window, maybe a 30 to 60-minute window, I notice that I feel like that just helps my digestion feel better. And there's science to back that up because our bodies are really on a 24-hour circadian clock. Our cells are on 24-hour clocks. And the more that you time meals regularly, the more your body actually knows and prepares for those meals. So over time, your body will literally be ready to digest because it knows what time you usually eat lunch or dinner. That's one pretty small thing that I've implemented quite a while ago. And like I said, I feel like I do notice a difference when I'm able to stay pretty regular with my meals. And the other thing that goes with that is, for me, I find that like not snacking between meals is also helpful. So I try to give myself about 3 hours, or at least 3 hours between meals, where I'm really not ingesting anything that my body has to digest. So water or tea or whatever would be fine. No actual like caloric food or drinks. My understanding is that with our digestive system, 3 to 4 hours is kind of what it takes for it to sort of fully process what you last ate. And by giving that amount of time in between meals, you're essentially giving your digestive system a bit of a rest. And if you're constantly snacking and your digestive system is constantly working, that can potentially cause issues over time. Obviously, everybody's different with their own preferences or like what feels good for you, but the more that I've implemented that over the years as well, the more that I just feel like that works really well for me. And then at night, I do also try to do about 12 hours overnight. I don't like to say it's like a 12-hour fast, because I feel like fasting is kind of a controversial subject, but just giving my body that 12-hour break. It's very easy for me to do that overnight because most of that is spent sleeping. But what that looks like for me is generally finishing dinner around 6:30 p.m. And then in the morning, usually the first thing that I'm ingesting is my morning hydration drink, and that would usually be around 6:30 or 7 a.m. I have also heard some research saying that like 12 hours of essentially fasting is sort of the shortest amount of time where you can see certain benefits from that. There are different benefits you can get from longer fasts. It's not something I'm super well educated on at this point, but again, for me, 12 hours overnight, it's very easy to do. And I know it's also giving my digestive system a longer break, kind of a chance to fully rest and recover. And those two things, just like timing my meals regularly and kind of having a certain amount of time between meals, I find that my digestion then just feels kind of like more consistent and efficient, I guess, or effective. And it's one of those things that I feel like it's very easy for me to implement on a daily basis. And I know that as a long-term strategy, again, it's going to just be supportive overall for gut health and digestive health, which is something that I am always working on. For lunch today, I have some ground beef with a bunch of cilantro and some pickled jalapenos. I love cilantro, which is good because it is also good for liver detox support. Some avocado with more cilantro for some healthy fats. Half an apple left over from yesterday that I forgot to bring to Freddie today, but I'll have that as a source of carbs. And then some kimchi, also another thing that I do to support gut health pretty much every day, is trying to eat some kind of fermented food, kimchi, sauerkraut, etc. I really like it, so it's not hard for me to include that, and it's got a ton of probiotics for gut health. Good morning, happy Sunday. I'm getting ready to head over to the barn. I've still been waking up a bit earlier these last few days. I feel like the whole time that I've been here so far, I was waking up around 6:30 or maybe even a little bit later. And this past week, I've been waking up closer to like 6 o'clock, which obviously not a big difference, but it's definitely a shift. It's a noticeable shift. Not sure if that's due to kind of the seasonal change, like the light is definitely changing. It's getting darker earlier. It's staying a lot darker later in the morning. I do feel like maybe I'm going to bed a little bit earlier, and overall I'm still getting good sleep, so I'm not like worried about it, but it is something that just kind of taking note of, because I also think it could have something to do with the antifungal medication and supplement that I've been taking now for a little over a week, because I've also noticed a few other minor but noticeable symptoms or side effects, I guess, after starting those. I've had a little bit of like a gut reaction to it, nothing severe, but maybe like an hour or two after I take both the medication and the supplement I take in the morning, I'll just feel a little bit like gurgly and like a little bit of kind of heartburn, and that will dissipate after a couple of hours. And then in the evening, I'm just taking the medication. I'm not taking a second dose of the supplement right now, because I found that that was a little too disruptive and really made me feel uncomfortable in terms of the gut reaction and made it hard to fall asleep. But I'm still taking a second dose of the antifungal medication at night. And then I feel like I noticed just a little bit maybe at night, but also even into the next morning. So I'm wondering if just it's sort of giving me enough of a reaction that maybe it's impacting my sleep a little bit. In some way, it's a little bit disruptive, obviously, because I'm experiencing some side effects. Again, it's nothing crazy, but just noting it down and kind of seeing whether I adjust to this and adapt, whether it continues once I'm done with these supplements or medications, we'll see. The other kind of side effect that I've noticed is a little bit more pain or kind of inflammation. Again, the whole time that I've been here so far, for like the first 6 weeks, I had a noticeable decrease in the amount of just overall pain I was feeling, like kind of joint pain or muscle pain and tension. And then when I started these antifungal medications, I feel like the pain and sort of inflamed feeling came back to more kind of what I would consider my normal, which is things like my feet hurt more, have kind of tightness in my low back and hips. I feel a little more restricted, a little more tension. And I just kind of wonder if like a little bit of disruption to my gut or kind of the medication working and maybe stirring things up a little bit is causing a little bit of inflammation, or just sort of that full body reaction beyond just gut symptoms. So anyway, that's a lot of words basically to say that I've noticed a few things since starting these medications or the antifungal supplement, keeping track of it. Nothing so far that is causing me concern, but just always interesting to me to see how my body responds to these things, and or responds to things like seasonal changes, changes in the amount of light, etc. So we'll see sort of how things play out over the next couple of weeks. And also if anything changes when I go home. That's kind of the other factor that's really hard to totally understand at this point. I wonder if when I go home and I'm back in a different environment or kind of on a little bit of a different routine, how will that affect things? Will my body feel different? Will I be waking up at different times? What will my pain or tension levels be like? Speaking of going home and or when I am leaving Virginia, that has been on my mind a little bit more lately, because kind of getting towards the end or potentially the end of my time here and trying to figure out what my departure date is going to be. We'll check in more on that later, but for now, gotta get over to the barn, get Freddie out for her walk. Good morning. It's now about 10:30 on Monday, and I am not going to the barn today, so I'm out running some errands this morning. Or at least I'm not planning to go to the barn today. I am still waiting for the vet to be able to come see Freddie, and we're basically just playing it by ear at this point, and she's going to fit her in when she has a chance and just like give me a heads up when she's going to be able to head over there. So I guess it's possible she could end up texting me later today and saying, can you meet me over there? But the woman that's been helping me is going to do Freddie's walk today. I'm just catching up on a few things that I didn't do this weekend. I just stopped at Target to pick up a few things. Now I'm I'm at the grocery store. I need to get gas in my car. I also at some point in the next couple of days need to get over to the post office. I did finally figure out where there is a post office near me, or like the one that is most convenient to me where I can ship off some packages, because one of my best friend's birthday is coming up and I want to send her a little something. And I also want to get over to that little bookstore again today, the one that I went to a few weeks ago, because I have basically finished the 3 books that I bought last time and want to find a few new ones. So hoping I can get to that later today too. But the post office and the bookstore are kind of in different directions from where I am now. So just gonna do grocery run. Also because I don't totally know how much longer I'm gonna be here. It's probably gonna be somewhere 2 to 3 more weeks would be my guess. It partly depends on whether the apartment that I'm renting, if they have somebody else that wants to move in at a certain time. I'm trying to sort of coordinate with them. Anyway, because I don't totally know how much longer I'm gonna be here, I'm trying to be a little bit careful with groceries and like how much food I'm buying, because I just don't want to have overstocked up on stuff and then have to like pack up and go, which is probably like a little too soon. I probably don't need to be thinking about that quite yet because I will have at least 2 more weeks here, but just doing like slightly smaller grocery restocks just in case. Was I successful in my attempt to not overdo it on the grocery shopping? I don't know, but I guess we'll see how quickly I get through this.
Absolutely something you use for normal. Get back to yourself again.
Okay, it's a couple days later and I wanted to do a quick book update. So a little review of the 3 books that I finished and the 3 new books that I picked up at the bookstore the other day. So the first time that I went to that local independent bookstore, I picked up 3 books that had been on my list for a while. They all were pretty easy reads, like pretty quick reads, and I got through them pretty fast. I liked all of them. The first one that I read was Crying in H Mart, which is a memoir that I had heard about. I think I'd heard an interview with the author a long time ago when the book first came out, which was 2021. Funny thing is, I was really convinced that I had not read this book before, but as I was reading it, there were certain parts that I felt like I really remembered or seemed really familiar to me. Not the whole thing, like there were other parts that I feel like I didn't really remember, or times when I was reading it when I didn't feel like I had read it before, but then there would be like certain sections. I don't know if this has happened to anybody else before, but there are times when I've been reading a book where I realize I have read it before only because like certain paragraphs or chapters, it's like deja vu. I vaguely recall it. I obviously didn't remember it enough to realize that I had read the book before. But anyway, assuming I did read this book several years ago and just didn't totally remember that I had already read it, I still enjoyed it. This one was definitely the most serious of the three. It's a memoir of a woman whose mom is dying of cancer and she's kind of taking care of her throughout the process. So it's kind of intense. I feel like it's kind of the book you might have to be in the mood for that kind of vibe, or just kind of be ready to take on more of like an emotional story. So there were times, because I tend to read at night before bed, there were times where I kind of felt like, not totally sure I want to dive into this right now, but I liked the writing, I liked the story, and I would definitely recommend it. Just be forewarned, it's not like the most happy, uplifting story, but probably also really relatable for a lot of people. The next book that I read was James, and this is described as a brilliant reimagining of Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, told from the enslaved Jim's point of view. This was really, really good. I didn't really know what to expect going into it beyond it's a retelling of Huckleberry Finn, but I was like hooked right away. It was a really compelling story. It was a really quick and easy read. Not like easy read in the sense that it was like unsophisticated or something like that, but easy in that like you really get engrossed in the story and want to keep going, and the story is moving pretty quickly, so I felt like I got through it really fast just because I found it really interesting. I'm sure I must have read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn at some point, like for school or something, but I really don't remember it if I did. So I'm not sure if this like follows that story and it's just from different point of view, or if it's really reimagined, but definitely would recommend this. I thought it was really, really interesting and just a fascinating story. The last book that I finished was Raising Hare. This was probably my favorite of the three. Another one that I feel like I got through really fast just because I wanted to keep reading it and I couldn't put it down. This is a story of a woman during the pandemic. She's usually living like kind of a fast-paced life in London and doing a lot of traveling, but she also has a home kind of in the English countryside, and that's where she ends up spending a lot of lockdown period. She ends up rescuing basically this baby hare, which is different than a bunny. That's something that I learned. And essentially raising it, but not as a pet. I think this was kind of the most interesting part of the story. It's not like somebody who takes in a wild animal and it turns into their pet. She really managed to let this animal live as it would in the wild, while also kind of like coming into her home and learning to trust her. And besides just being like a really touching story, like if you like animals in nature, kind of impossible not to love this book. And I think for me right now, being here, spending a lot of time with horses and working a lot with Freddie, like it just kind of resonated with where I'm at right now, although I'm definitely not like in the wilds of the English countryside. But such a cool story, and also a really good reminder to kind of slow down and like really reconnect with nature and our environment and animals around us. I definitely want to keep this book because I feel like this is the kind of book that I will return to again and again to reread. So that was the 3 books that I already read, and then I got 3 more from the bookstore the other day. Starting with Dream Count. This is another one that has been on my list for quite a while. It's a pretty new book. It came out earlier this year. This author also wrote the book Americana several years ago, which was something that I read and really enjoyed. I don't think I've read any of her other books. Actually, that's not true. I think I've read at least one other one of her books. I just started this one last night. Again, I don't like to read the inside cover or the back of the books very much because I just feel like it gives too much away, and I'd rather go into the story blind, I guess, or just like I don't want to know what sort of the trajectory is going to be. All I know about this one is that it also takes place during COVID lockdown, and a woman kind of reflecting on past choices, past relationships, that kind of thing. Beyond that, I'm not totally sure, but so far I think I've like 1 or 2 chapters in and I really like it. It's really interesting to kind of be taken back to the beginning of the pandemic and like the very beginning of lockdown when none of us really knew what was going on and everything felt like super isolating and really uncertain. So I'm curious to see where this one is going to go, but I'm already enjoying it. The next book I got is another memoir called Care and Feeding. I do not remember how this got on my list or where I heard about it. Often I'll hear about a book maybe from an interview with an author or someone else that I trust who maybe has like similar reading preferences to me has recommended it, and I just like put it on a list I have of books to read. Sometimes I don't end up finding or reading those books till a lot later, and I can never remember where I heard about it or why I thought it sounded good. But this memoir is about a woman who works in the restaurant industry and kind of the chaos that comes along with that, and also kind of being a woman in a really male-dominated field. I always like a good memoir. I find it really interesting to read about other people's lives, especially people that like have a really different life or career than I do. So I'm looking forward to reading this one next. And the last book that I got is a nonfiction book called The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. I have heard this recommended by several people. I've also read a few other of this author's books that I really like, and have heard some interviews with him that made me really interested in this book. I'm also always really curious about like how the brain works and how we learn and how we change throughout our lives. And even though I didn't grow up with social media and smartphones as a child, and I don't have kids that I'm trying to figure out how to raise in that kind of environment, I still find this kind of stuff really interesting. And I feel like it's probably also really applicable to adults and how we kind of relate to social media or smartphones, and how that might relate to feelings of anxiety or loneliness or other mental illnesses. And if I remember correctly, the previous books that I've read by this author, he's done a really good job of like providing information and science about what is actually happening on a physiological or biological level, but also offering actual strategies and tools or solutions for making change, whether that's like in your own life, or if you are raising kids. So it's not just like fear mongering or like telling you everything that is really bad about this or that, and then kind of like leaving you with no way to move forward. So another book that, again, has been on my list for a while. I'm guessing I probably won't get to this one until I get home, but we'll see how quickly I get through the other two, and or when I end up actually leaving to go home. I realize maybe book reviews or book picks are not everybody's idea of a good time, but I love to read, and I'm always interested to hear what other people are reading or what books people have loved or are on their to-read list. Hopefully that will help some of you find your next book to read. But if anybody has any other book recommendations, even though my to-read list is like a mile long, I'm always looking to add that. So leave any recommendations in the comments. I think I'm going to wrap up this video here. Looking into next week, like I said, still kind of waiting for the vet to just like give me a last minute call about when she can come see Freddie. Still waiting to hear back from the people I'm renting this apartment from about whether they have a next renter coming in or somebody lined up, and coordinating when I might need to vacate, but kind of starting to plan ahead for heading home in the next couple of weeks. And next week I may also take a little day trip to Charlottesville. It's only about 45 minutes away from here. You may recall from a video quite a while ago when I was just visiting Freddie in Virginia for a couple of days. I drove to Charlottesville to visit two other horses that I used to show who have been retired there for many years. And I have been meaning to get over to see them at some point while I'm here. Now that I'm getting maybe closer to actually leaving, I want to actually make that happen. So that may also be coming up next week. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next week.